bracha means that there's a special insert. Thank you very much. There's a special insert for the holiday of Shmini Atzeret. You say Shmini Atzeret HaChag Hazeh. You say something, instead of saying Yom Chag HaSukkot Hazeh, you refer to it as Shmini Atzeret, both in the davening and both in the Birkat HaMazon. When you say a insert in the Birkat HaMazon, the Ya'aleh V'Yavo, so you say Ya'aleh V'Yavo, and then you say B'yom Chag HaWat. Right? So on the first 7 days of Sukkot, you call B'yom Chag HaSukkot Hazeh. The Shmini Atzeret, you refer to the Shmini Atzeret. So there was two possible ways of understanding what is the bracha that's given, the unique bracha that's given on Shmini Atzeret. Is it referring to the Shechianu, or is it referring to something else, not Shechianu? That was the two possibilities that the Gemara said. And the Gemara said that even if it means Shechianu, and if according to the understanding of the Braita that you say Shechianu on Shmini Atzeret, it would come out, the Gemara first wanted to suggest that you don't even need a cup of wine. If you don't have a cup of wine for the Shechianu, you could take the Shechianu without the cup of wine. Let's say during Chol Hamoed, the Gemara was discussing the issue, because if you didn't say Shechianu the first days of the holiday, the Gemara says you can say Shechianu the middle days of the holiday. But the Gemara's question is, how can you say Shechianu? You don't, middle days on Chol Hamoed, you don't have a cup of wine in front of you. So the Gemara wanted to prove from there that the blessing of Shechianu is not dependent on the cup of wine. Even if you don't have a cup of wine, even though we ideally say Shechianu at Kiddush, right? When do we say Shechianu at Kiddush? But if you don't have a cup of wine, you do say Shechianu anyways. For instance, on Yom Kippur, right? Yom Kippur, what do we do on Yom Kippur at night? Yom Kippur, after Kol Nidrei, you say Shechianu. There's no cup of wine, there's no Kiddush. So we see that the Shechianu and the cup of wine, technically, they can exist without the cup of wine, right? Just like we said, Havdalah. That's true also, but that's a good point, Mr. Batesh. But here we're talking about, that's for Shechianu on a new suit, there's no cup of wine. But the question is, a Shechianu for a holiday, do you need a cup of wine? And the Gemara wants to prove, maybe you don't need. But then the Gemara shoots back, maybe you had a cup of wine with you during the Chol Hamoed, during the intermediate day, so it's no proof that you could do Shechianu on the holiday without a cup of wine. So that was a little bit the discussion of the Gemara. Do you need a cup of, in order to say Shechianu on the holiday, Ralph, not for the suit. You're right, the suit you would not need a cup of wine, but to say Shechianu on the holiday, do you need a what? Cup of wine. Right, but you're right, that's true. You say Kiddush, but the Braita states that there's a possibility of saying Shechianu all 7 days of the holiday. Even when you're not saying Kiddush. Now, again, that's according to one interpretation of the Braita, that the blessing that we're referring to is the blessing of Shechianu. So it shows us that even when there's no Kiddush, you can still say Shechianu, like on the intermediate days, you can still say Shechianu. That's one interpretation of the Braita. And that would be the halachic interpretation of the Braita. As we compared the Shechianu on the holiday to have the Havdalah on B'samim, when you have B'samim or candle, right? Motzei Shabbat, right? David, Saturday night, you make Havdalah, right? But what happens, you find yourself in a place, you went to a hotel, and they forgot to bring the B'samim. They forgot to bring, they don't have the fire. Now, there's other substitutes you can use for B'samim, but if you don't have any substitutes, you could still, what you do is, you make Havdalah without the fire, without the B'samim. If you don't have the fire on the B'samim, and later in the evening, you'll make Havdalah on the cup of wine, and later in the evening, when you get the spices, you get the fire, you can make a separate bracha on the fire by itself without the cup of wine. Even though, really, ideally, in life, there's something called the ideal, there's something called not ideal, if you want to say it like that. The ideal thing is to do when you say you say the cup, the blessing on the B'samim, and the blessing on the fire is in front with a cup of wine in front of you. But if you don't have the cup of wine in front of you, you can still say the blessing. David, does that make sense? 11:30 at night, they got the psamim. 11:30 at night, they brought the candle. But I made the Havdalah at 9 o'clock at night without the psamim, and I could just say the bracha by itself later on in the evening. So that was a lot of the discussion of the Gemara. Then the Gemara now turns to a different point that we had in the name of Rabbi Yehuda. That was a little recap, right, Adam? A little review. Review is always good, right? And Rabbi Yehuda, there's something called Lina. Lina means lodging. Like the pasuk says, you have a place called Lalun to stay overnight. And when you bring the korban, the Gemara said that when you bring the korban on Shmini Atzeret, Rabbi Yehuda says you have to stay overnight. If you bring the korban on the 8th day of the holiday, there's a special mitzvah to stay overnight. You don't just go, we don't go, it's not in and out. You come to Jerusalem, you bring the offering and you'll leave. What do they call it? Red eye? What do they call that? In and out. You don't stay overnight in a place, right? You come in, you come out. There's a special halakha. Anytime you bring a korban, you stay overnight in Jerusalem. You stay overnight. You bask in the glory of the holiness. But then there's a new halacha, which is unique for holiday, that of certain situations, that even if you did not bring an offering, you participate. You didn't bring. It wasn't your animal that you brought. Someone else brought a korban. Let's say during the holiday, and you participated in that korban, you have to stay overnight as well. That's called lina. And Rabbi Yehuda said that the same way, if I was participated in the korban during the holidays, during the 7 days of Sukkot, I would have to stay overnight. If I brought a korban, an offering in honor of the holiday on Shmini Atzeret, I also have to stay overnight. I can't just leave that same day, bring the korban and leave. I got to stay overnight. And the Gemara challenged that ruling. And that's what we discussed yesterday. The Gemara challenged that ruling, and the Gemara, answered the challenge, because the Gemara wanted to say the law of Pesach Sheni. Right now, in a month, less than a month, a few weeks from now, less than 3 weeks, will be Pesach Sheni. What's Pesach Sheni? Pesach Sheni is there were people that had been contaminated. They had come in contact with a dead body, and they were not able to bring the korban Pesach. They weren't in a state of purity to bring the Pesach offering on the holiday of Pesach. And they came to Moshe, and they said to Moshe, we don't want to miss out. We don't want to miss out that we're not bringing the offering. Everybody else is bringing the offering. We don't want to miss out. Right? Some people don't want to miss the game, the ball game. But these people, they don't want to miss the korban Pesach. They don't want to miss right, David? They don't want to miss the korban Pesach. They don't want to miss that holy experience. This is a big lesson in life, right, Adam? When there's something holy going on. Yes. We don't say Tachnun on Pesach Sheni. And also, you're going to see that, David, coming up. Pesach Sheni, we're about 2.5 weeks from Pesach Sheni. There's not going to be, there won't be any Tachnun on Pesach Sheni. And right, yeah, the Yud Dalet, very good. Yud Dalet Iyar. The rabbi got his calendar in his pocket. I say, growing up, we had the commercial American Express card. Don't leave home without it. I say sometimes for a rabbi, calendar is something you shouldn't leave home without it. So Pesach Sheni is going to be on May 22nd. Wednesday, May 22nd. Some people actually eat matzah, because when they brought the Pesach Sheni, there was a mitzvah to eat matzah as well for those people, and some people actually eat matzah. Not everyone has that custom to eat matzah on Pesach Sheni. Maybe the Hasidim, I presume, do that. So we're connected to it. At least in the davening, we remember it. We recognize it's a happy day. It's a celebratory day in some sense, because it was a day that people brought a korban, brought the offering, and so therefore they got a makeup. Hashem gave them a makeup that if you're not able to bring the korban pesach on Pesach because of your level of contamination, you came in contact with a dead body, you buried somebody, and if someone buried somebody that contaminated for 7 days, and they had to sprinkle the ashes of the paraduma of the people that were contaminated, they were given another opportunity, a makeup day, and that was Pesach Sheni. And the Gemara says that Pesach Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion that Pesach Sheni does not require staying overnight. If you bring the Pesach, if the Pesach Sheni was brought on you don't have the law like you have the law on Pesach Rishon. If you brought a korban in the Beit on holiday, you have to stay overnight. But Pesach Sheni doesn't get that status. That's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Yes, Ralph. No, the Shmini Atzeret by Sukkot, but Shmini it's by Sukkot. So the Gemara says that Rabbi Yehuda excluded Pesach Sheni, and the Gemara was thinking that Pesach Sheni, it doesn't have a Pesach Sheni, in contrast to Pesach Rishon, the Torah connects the staying overnight to the fact that Pesach has multiple days of matzah. It's the Pesach, which has multiple days of matzah. We have many days that we eat matzah. That's the case. That's the scenario. That's the backdrop that the Torah says you have to go ahead and stay overnight. But however, Pesach Sheni, which only has one night of matzah, does not have that backdrop of such a celebratory time with days, which connects with many days of matzah, does not need to stay overnight. That is the backdrop, and the Gemara was thinking, Shmini, if you look at the holiday of Sukkot and the holiday of Shmini Atzeret, Sukkot is a 7-day, it's a 7-day holiday. So however, Shmini Atzeret is a 1-day holiday. It doesn't have the backdrop of it's not accompanied by a 7-day holiday. It's a 1-day deal. In contrast to Sukkot, which is so the Gemara was thinking that Sukkot, which has a 7-day holiday, is similar to Pesach, which is a 7-day holiday. So maybe those two type of situations you have to stay overnight. But Pesach Sheni, which is not a 7-day holiday, you don't stay overnight. So the Gemara was thinking Shmini Atzeret also should not stay overnight. And therefore that was the Gemara's question on Rabbi Yehuda, because we had Rabbi Yehuda on record saying that Shmini Atzeret you stay overnight, but then he went on record and he says Pesach Sheni you don't stay overnight. So the Gemara was thinking if you don't stay overnight Pesach Sheni, you should not stay over by morning jack. You should not stay overnight by Shmini Atzeret. And the Gemara says no. The only thing that we are excluding is when you're dealing with the holiday of Pesach, we could exclude Pesach Sheni. But we're not excluding a total different holiday from staying overnight. The exclusion is that backdrop of Pesach, which is a 7-day holiday, that's where you stay overnight. In contrast to Pesach Sheni, which is also connected with the holiday of Pesach, which is not 7 days, you don't stay overnight. But it's not excluding Shmini Atzeret. Shmini Atzeret is a different situation. It's a different time of the year. It's not connected to the holiday of Pesach. So we have so you don't have an exclusion on the law of staying overnight, and therefore you could go ahead and Shmini Atzeret. He will stand by what we had recorded in Reguda's name before, that you will stay overnight on Shmini Atzeret. You bring the korban, you'll be required to stay overnight. That is the backdrop of where we're holding in the Gemara, bringing everybody up to date. So now the Gemara, we're on the bottom of 47b1. Hachinami mistavra. This is also logical. The Gemara, a lot of times the Gemara says a point, says an answer to a question, and the Gemara sometimes wants to say the logic also lends itself to what we're saying now. Meaning, the issue on the table is, do we exclude Shmini Atzeret from the law of staying overnight? The same way Pesach Sheni, the makeup date of Pesach, you don't need to stay overnight according to Rabbi Yehuda. Do we say the same thing? You won't need to stay overnight for Shmini Atzeret, or not? And the Gemara, at this point of the Gemara, wanted to say it's different. And maybe you will have to stay overnight for Shmini Atzeret. And now the Gemara is going to show why the logic seems to lend itself to this idea. Hachinami mistafa. This is also logical. Why? Titnan. We have a Mishnah. Habikurim tu'unin korban. Bikurim, we started touching on yesterday, is the first fruits. The Bikurim is that they're the seven, Israel is known for 7 fruits. It's called the Shivat Haminim, the 7 species of the land of Israel. The grapes, the olives, the dates, the figs, pomegranates, and wheat and barley. Chita, Sorah, Gefen, right? The 7 things. And by the way, as we all know, there's a special bracha achrona. There's a special after blessing for grapes compared to an apple. Grapes compared to an orange. Because if you have an orange, I was with someone yesterday, he didn't even know that you say a burn of fashot on water. He didn't know you take a drink of water. You're supposed to take a burn of fashot on water. He didn't know that. So on we have to teach people, right? So on oranges, on apples, you say a burn of fashot. After you had an ounce of orange, you finished eating. If you had at least an ounce of orange, an ounce of apple, you say a bar nefashot. You had a kesayit, say bar nefashot. However, if you had a kesayit, an ounce of grapes, then you don't say bar nefashot. It gets a different blessing. It gets the blessing of ala eitz, pri eitz. It's a special bracha. It's called the bracha me'in shalosh. It's like a mini birkat hamazon, meaning it has themes of the birkat hamazon. It's a small bracha, but it's bigger than the bar nefashot. It's a special bracha for the species that Israel, on a pomegranate, on a date, on figs. The special after bracha that you say, good morning, Morris, is the ala eitz. So specifically those 7 fruits that Israel is known for, you have a special mitzvah of bikurim, that when those fruits grow, the first fruits of the growth you bring to the Beit HaMikdash, you bring to the Kohen. You bring to the Kohen, and it's a whole big deal. You go ahead and you make a declaration, you say psukim of thanks to Hashem, like we said, Haggadah. In the Haggadah, we say Arami Oved Avi, and if you want to mention that we're on the, thank you very much. We say Arami, what we did in the Haggadah, Pesach, where we elaborate on, came down to Mitzrayim, and so on. We talk, that's part of the declaration of the person who brings the first fruits, where he gives a little history lesson, so to speak, about being thankful about, we went to, how Hashem took us out of Egypt, gave us the land of Israel, and so on. So that's the Bikurim. But not only do you have to bring the fruits, you need to bring the fruits and accompany it with a korban. You bring an offering together with the fruits. So let's see what the Gemara says about the fruits. Itnan, Habikurim, the first fruits, we are on 47b1, the last line of the page, last 2 lines. Habikurim tun and korban. They have to bring a korban. It's called a shlamim, a peace offering with the bikurim. And also shir. We need the Leviim. The Leviim need to sing. We need Ralph, the Levi, is going to be singing. Is going to be singing. Yes, you got to keep your vocals in good shape. You're going to be singing at the time that they bring the fruits, he's going to be singing the song, because the pasuk says, Rashi says, it says v'samachta b'chol hatov. It says you have to be happy with all the good that Hashem gives to you, and tov also refers to song. That you have to go ahead and sing a song for in honor of this great event. And so you need to sing a song. Let's see what else. Also, again, who the Leviim need to sing the song. Tnufa. There's also the waving. They would wave the bikurim. They wave the fruits in all directions, up, down, in all different directions, towards showing, towards Hashem, representing Hashem. Everything comes from Hashem. That's how you could explain the waving in the different directions. Good morning, Michael.
Hi, Rabbi.
So they do. Michael was talking about the bikurim that we mentioned at the end of the class yesterday. That the person, when they bring the bikurim, it says here that they would bring the bikurim. The Mishnah states, and they would bring a korban. They would bring an offering, a shlamim with the bikurim. They would go ahead and the Leviim would sing a song with the bikurim. And now we said tnufa, another halacha. They would wave the bikurim in all the different directions, and also maybe symbolic, saying as if I'm giving it to Hashem, with the fruit I'm really giving. This is just the first fruit. This bikurim. That around Shavuot time, the bikurim they would bring the first fruits, and I think I once saw by waving it in the different directions is representing the idea I'm bringing it to Hashem, the first fruits. I'm giving it to the Kohanim, but I'm recognizing that Hashem was the one who gave the blessing for the growth. So we got the bikurim. So we go tnufa. It has to be waving. You go ahead and you would wave it to the four directions of the east, west, north, and south. You wave it in the four directions, and also you would go ahead afterwards, Rashi. Then you would wave, up and down. So that's what you would do by the bringing of the bikurim. And also it says lina. It also says that you would stay overnight. You need to stay overnight after you go ahead and you bring the bikurim, you bring the korban. You would have to go ahead and stay overnight. Now, so the Gemara says, "Man shamit lei." Who? This is the statement of the Mishnah. The Mishnah states. Now, the Mishnah did not give a name of an author for this Mishnah. Did not say who is the author of this Mishnah that says that Bikurim you have to stay overnight. Now, remember, Bikurim is not a 7-day holiday. Bikurim is very similar to Shmini Atzeret. It's a 1-day deal. It's a 1-day deal, and yet it says you stay overnight. So who is this author? So we found this Mishnah grouped together the law of waving the fruits and the staying overnight, and we have on record that the rabbi who says that you need to wave the fruits is Rabbi Yehuda. So most probably, if he's the one who says you wave the fruits, he's most probably, and this Mishnah says you wave the fruits, so most probably he's the author of this Mishnah. And he also states in the Mishnah, not only you wave the fruits, you also stay overnight. So it seems that seems from here that we have made our case to suggest that the author of this Mishnah that says you stay overnight by the fruits, by the Bikurim, is Rabbi Yehuda, because it also mentions the law of waving, which we know he went on record to say you wave the fruits, and therefore it could show logically what we said earlier, that Shmini Atzeret, Rabbi Yehuda says even though it's a 1-day deal, you still need to stay overnight, just like by Bikurim, it would seem that he says you stay overnight. It seems that he's the author. That's what the Gemara is. Man shamet le de'amar tenufa. Who's the one who says that you need to wave the first fruits? That's Rabbi Yehuda. That's Rabbi Yehuda. And yet, and yet it says, to only not. The Mishnah says you go ahead and you have to stay overnight by Bikurim. So too, it's logical that Rabbi Yehuda would hold that by Shmini Atzeret, which is a one-day deal, you also need to go ahead and what? Stay overnight. So that's what the Gemara wants. Now, the Gemara says, where do we see that Rabbi Yehuda says this, that you have to waive the Bikurim? Where do we see that? The Tanya, we learned in the Breita. Rabbi Yehuda says, V'hi nachto. The pasuk says you need to place the bikurim, the basket of the bikurim, down. And what does this word v'hi nachto refer to? So it sounds like you put it down. You put it down in front of the mizbeach, the Fnei Hashem. You put it down. But the Gemara says it can't be referring to actually putting it down. Why not? The Gemara says zut nufa. When the Torah, what do you say? So we're going to see. I think the Gemara is going to say. Let's David. We're going to see how the Gemara is going to say it. The Gemara says like this: Zut nufa. This means the Torah means that you will wave the basket, and when it says you will place it down in front of the mizbeach, it's after you wave it. But we're going to see the different steps. Stay tuned. You're going to place it down after you wave the bikurim in all the directions, recognizing who gave it to you, who gave you the fruits. That's when you will place it down. Now, the Gemara says, how do you know that? Ata omer, you're telling me, zutufa. You're telling me that you have to place it down after you did the waving. Or maybe maybe the pasuk means to say that the mitzvah is you just have to place the basket in front of the mizbeach. And the kohanim will take the basket from there and eat the fruits. How do you know it means waving? Where do you see in the words placing down that you're waving it? That's not the translation of placing something down. So the Gemara says, because I'm forced to understand it that way. Why? Because in the beginning of the parsha, it says, the Kohen will take the basket from your hand, v'hinicho, and he will place it in front of the mizbeach. Harei hanacha omur. It already stated that you place it in front of the mizbeach. So why do you need to go ahead? What needs to be done to place it a second time? So why is the Torah telling us you place it and you place it in front of the mizbeach? You told me already you did it. Why are you telling me you place it twice in front of the mizbeach? You put it down once, right, Morris? What does it mean you place it? So the Gemara Hamani Mekayim Hinachto. How do we explain the pasuk that says at the end of the parsha, right? In the beginning of the parsha, it says the Kohen takes the basket and puts it in front of the mizbeach, in front of the altar. And the end of the parsha, it says he puts it again. What are you putting a second time? The answer is after the Kohen puts it in front of the mizbeach, the one who brought the first fruits, we'll call them the Baalim, the owners who brought it, will go ahead and they'll retake the bikurim, they'll pick up the basket, and after he picks up the basket, to do what? To do because the waving is going to be done. Then the Torah says, now you got to re-put it back down by the front of the mizbeach. Now, so the question is, why is he taking it? Why is the owner taking the fruits after the Kohen took it from him and placed it in front of the mizbeach? The answer is the owner is taking the fruits for the purpose of what? Of waving. And the Gemara is going to show how the waving is going to be done, but that's why he's taking it. So, Zutnufa. So, why is he placing it back by the front of the Mizbeach? Zutnufa. That's the waving. So, that's what the Gemara. So, now that we prove that's Rabbi Yehuda's source, that he understands there's a mitzvah to wave the first fruits. And that Mishnah states there's waving the first and lina, staying overnight. So it seems that since we found that waving is Rabbi Yehuda, so it's probably the law of staying overnight is also Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara shoots back, Vidilma Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Maybe no proof. Maybe that Mishnah that states that you have to stay overnight, maybe it's a different rabbi. It's Rabbi, because we have another rabbi on record that says that you need to waive the Bikurim. Meaning, if Rabbi Yehuda is the only rabbi in the world that says you have to waive the first fruits, so then you could rest your case. Your Honor, you could rest your case. You won, because if he's the only one who says you have to waive it, and it says together in that same Mishnah, you waive it and you have to stay overnight, it proves he so holds you have to stay overnight. But the fact is, there's a different rabbi, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, that says that you have to also, he's of the opinion, he concurs with the Rabbi Yehuda, you have to waive the Bikurim. So maybe he's the author that says in the Mishnah Bikurim, you have to waive the Bikurim and stay overnight. But maybe Rabbi Yehuda might hold you have to waive the Bikurim, but not necessarily you have to stay overnight. That's what the Gemara is doing now. The Dilma Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, the Tanya, we have a Braita that records Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov's opinion. It says, "V'lakach haKohen hatena miyadecha." The Kohen takes the basket from your hand, and Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov understands from this word, this pasuk, the Kohen takes it from your hand. Somehow, the word's going to explain in a moment, that refers to limed abikurim shetun and tnufa. This language of Kohen taking it from your hand is teaching us that there has to be a tnufa, that there has to be a waving process by the first fruits. The Gemara says, "My time, Rabbi." Where does he know this from? Where does he see the Kohen taking the fruits from your hand is telling us about waving the first fruits? Morris, is that clear? That's the Gemara's question. So the Gemara says, Atiyah is something called Gzeira Shaveh. When the Torah writes the same word in two different places, so sometimes the reason why the Torah writes, right? I see Michael smiling, he's enjoying it. Is why does the Torah use the same word over here and over there? So many times the Torah, Hashem wrote the same word intentionally to teach you that the law that applies here applies there. That's why Hashem, in his infinite wisdom, wrote the same word. Now, sometimes he can write the same word in both places, and it's not to teach you that the law that applies here applies there. One Aaron, I was thinking of you yesterday. But here he's learning, but sometimes, and that's tradition, you don't make up your own Gzeira Shaveh. You don't make up your own Gzeira Shaveh by saying, I have a word here and a word there. I'm going to say what the law that applies there. Gzeira Shaveh is something that's passed down from Moshe, Hashem to Moshe. It's halacha, the Moshe Sinai. It's from Sinai that teaches you the law, that this idea of the word, the use of the word here and the use of the word there, the same word is to teach you certain lessons. So that's what he says over here. It says, when it comes to Bikurim, it says you take the basket from the hand, from your hand. The Kohen takes the basket from the hand of the owner. And Uksiv Hatam, and by the Karban Shlamim, when you bring the peace offering, it also says over there, Yadav Tiviena Eit Ishe Hashem. It uses the word Yadav, the hand. Also, when you go ahead and you bring, it says that the hands of the owner should bring the Karban for waving, and the Pasuk says for the purpose of he's bringing the Karban to wave in front of Hashem. So Ma'kan, just like when it Bikurim, when it's referred to Ma'kan, the taking of it is through a Kohen. Makan, it says Lokach Kohen Haktena. The Kohen takes the tena. It's through a Kohen. So the Gemara is going to show you that it applies to this law of Tnufa. that the law of Tnufa applies by Bikurim. Time is late. We'll have to continue on Monday to go a little bit more to the details of this drash. So we'll want to wish everyone a beautiful Shabbat. Beautiful to have everybody here. Well, hopefully more people will be back on Monday. And we can
Shabbat shalom, Rabbi.
have a good Shabbat. And Michael, we can encourage other people, right?
Bezat Hashem. I'll work on the voice.
I gave you homework.
Thank you, Rabbi. You got it.
Thank you. Have a great Shabbat. You too.
Shabbat shalom.
What, you